This will have to be a very quick one. Hello and welcome to Pathos Metamorphose. I believe we are up to episode 9. My phone is almost out of space here. It's a common problem that I seem to have because the videos take up so much space, and I have to manage my space better on my phone. In any case, this episode goes out to anyone who's been impacted in any way by violence, specifically gun violence. And this goes out to all our those who have gone before us. This is being recorded the day after Memorial Day and have paid the ultimate price and died in battle fighting for our great country. These may seem like two sides of a different coin, but they are related in that we're talking about violence, and in one case, very, very unnecessary. And don't want to just offer up thoughts and prayers to those families impacted, though I definitely want to continue to offer them up, offer prayers for those impacted. In Uvalde, Texas there. I just want to say this. We need red flag laws across this land of ours. We need common sense, risk-based gun removal laws in every state. There's no reason why we shouldn't have that. Responsible gun owners can continue to have their guns. We also need, common sense laws around, or guidelines around, who should own guns and background checks. Any responsible gun owner can go along with these things and should agree that our kids' lives are important enough to put those things in place. So with that, I'll just say a couple things, some quotes here. I had been reading a book a little while ago called The Unseen Realm by Dr. Michael Heiser. Some quotes that were very helpful to me about foreknowledge and predestination. Here's one: that which never happens can be foreknown by God, but it is not predestined since it never happened. Think about that one for a minute. So, kind of mind-bending. In one example of this, I won't read it, but 1 Samuel 23, where if you read that instance in the Bible, you'll see that their foreknowledge, God's foreknowledge, does not necessitate predestination or predetermination. And here's another quote: since foreknowledge doesn't require predestination, foreknown events that happen may or may not have been predestined. Another thing to kind of just mull over in your brain for a minute or two. And here, going on here, and this again is all from Dr. Michael Heiser: God may foreknow an event and predestine that event, but such predestination does not necessarily include decisions that lead up to that event. In other words, God may know and predestine the end, that something is ultimately going to happen, without predestining the means to that end. See 1 Kings 22, 13 to 23, and Daniel chapter 4. For example, the end is sovereignly ordained, but the means to that end may or may not be. And that's another part of the quote there. And more quote from Dr. Heiser: an ancient Israelite would have embraced this parsing of foreknowledge, predestination, sovereignty, and free will. he or she would not have been encumbered by a theological tradition. See, we get so hung up in our theological traditions, we have a hard time thinking biblically about things, because we kind of just, oh, it's predestination versus free will, or but the ancient Near Eastern folks, or the Israelites, didn't get hung up on that stuff. Okay, more of the quote. She would have understood that this is the way God himself has decided his rule over human affairs will work. These are Yahweh's decisions, and we accept them. And again, going on with the quote, this has significant implications for not only the fall, but the presence of evil in our world in general. God is not evil. There's no biblical reason to argue that God predestined the fall, though he foreknew it. There is no biblical reason to assert that God predestined all the evil events throughout human history simply because he foreknew them. So just some food for thought. That was very helpful to me as I was reading it, just in the way we think about how, God, how foreknowledge might work with predestination, and God's sovereignty, and just, thinking of all of that. It was very helpful for me. The only thing I had other things that I was probably going to talk about, but I don't have those notes, and frankly, at the end of the month now, and I wanted to just get this in, so I'll just, I'm going to end with this. My favorite, one of my favorite bands in the whole world is the 77s, and various iterations that a guy named Michael Rowe is involved in. I consider him a friend. I'm thankful to have hosted some shows in the past with Michael Rowe, and with various iterations of the Lost Dogs at a church in New Jersey, a Community Baptist church, back in 2007. And friend Dean Zimmerman, Professor Dean Zimmerman, and I were involved with promoting shows, me to a lesser extent as the years went on, and it was, Dean and Tammy's Basement of Sound that hosted the shows, and I was happy to be a part of it in some small way, and that was so much fun. Anyway, a lot of great friendships through Michael Rowe and his friends, and other band members like the Lost Dogs, Derry Doherty in the choir, Steve Hindalong also of the choir, Terry Scott Taylor of Daniel Amos. And Daniel Amos came out to Dean and Tammy's Basement of Sound, and so did Randy Stonehill, Phil Madeira, and so many others. Just great. So great to meet these folks, and to really, in some small way. Let's pause here for a random intermission.
Nora Tuzinit would like to be a mom when she grows up.
My phone actually did run out of space, and I had to make more room. So, where did I leave off? Anyway, so many great memories from fellow, I feel like, kindred spirits, lovers of independent music, good Christian, independent Christian alternative music, and friendships along the way. Anyway, I wanted to mention particularly about Michael Rowe because there is a wonderful podcast called True Tunes that's been around for many years. John Joseph Thompson. I've plugged this podcast before, but I'm going to put several links, and I recommend you to check it out, especially this interview. It's a two-part interview with Michael Rowe. And there's one in between that's, I guess he called it Character Witnesses, and just friends of Michael Rowe. It's the 45 RPM version, which is sort of a short version of the podcast. The podcast itself is longer form, and usually 1 to 2 hours, and the two-part Michael Rowe interview with music and guests talking about Michael and their impact on these folks, mostly musicians. Just definitely worth checking out, especially if you're a fan, but even if you're not, you're in for some good new music and just really insightful interview. So definitely recommend you check that out, and I will be putting links for those interviews on the in the show notes. So I'm recording this late at night, and I'm going to try to get this in before the end of May, but if I don't, that's okay. I'll try to make up for it next month, which is coming up shortly. So yeah, check out True Tunes. I recommend you to check out Mike Rowe's solo stuff with the 77s, one of my favorite bands. Another favorite band of mine called The Lost Dogs has Michael Rowe in it, as well as Derry Doherty, Terry Scott Taylor, and Steve Hindalong. And in the past they had Gene Eugene, who passed away at the age of 39 years old, and I believe it was in March 2000. But yeah, just a lot of great tunes in that band. And Kerosene Halo is another one that Mike does with Derry Doherty of the Choir, and it's like half of the Lost Dogs are in Kerosene Halo. But that's another great iteration of the band. Of various members of different bands. It's late. Yeah, and again, Mike Rowe's solo stuff. Can't go wrong. 7 and 7 is another sort of iteration of the band that includes some members and maybe not all of the members at different times, but definitely recommend checking out the True Tunes two-part interview. And that's all I'll say for now. I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of Pathos Metamorphos. I will have more content in episode 10. I just wanted to get something. I just wanted to get this in quick before too much more time went by. And that's it for now. Thank you. God bless.
Sisters, brothers, let us love one another.